Welcome back, my name's Joey Knows. Today we're going to be building a DIMIR deck for my free-to-play account. And I've been adding and cutting some cards here and there. I spent a couple of common, I think one uncommon wild card, but I haven't touched the rare or mythic wild cards. I'm saving it for today. So today what I'd like to do is go through what I've done with the deck already, what it does, what it doesn't do. Then we're going to look at the metagame and integrate what we can into this deck. Yeah, so first of all, I did what I can to build this deck. There's not anything super expensive or anything like that in here, except for this guy. I pulled him, so I figured I'd throw him in. He certainly couldn't hurt. So the main idea for this deck is like a DIMIR tempo control. It wins by stalling, chipping away, and then eventually snowballing. We take a look at the one costs. I only have black creatures, Infestation Sage, Hull Carver, and Tiny Bones. The idea of these one cost cards basically are either helpers for later on or to stall. That's it. Opt is a helper for later on because I have cards that rely on draw, which I'll show in a minute. Sleep Magic is for stalling. Unsummon is for stalling. And then we have a couple Death Touch, and this guy who can be a chip blocker, and then he comes back flying. Undying Malice is for later. I have cards that I definitely want on the board. I don't want them to die, so I keep them there. The deck is heavy on lower cost cards because I want to have that stall factor and then snowball later. For 2 costs, I start with this Dreams of Laguna so that I can have draw potentially twice, but at least once. Mischievous Mystic, this card is very, very important for the build. Whenever you draw a second card during your turn, you create a fairy. If you played the green and blue starter deck, you're familiar with this card. That's where I got it from. And these fairies can be chip blockers, and they can also snowball pretty hard if you have multiple of these Mischievous Mystics over time. I really like how this card feels, so I built the deck following this function. It has a lot of card draw, and I use a lot of stall in the deck so that I can really build up fairies and functions that are similar. Shoreline Looter, very simple card. It can't be blocked. When it attacks, I draw a card and discard unless there's 7 or more cards in your graveyard. So the idea is that I get a card every turn, and you have to remove him. You can't block him. Spectral Interference is a counter. It counters creatures and artifacts unless controller pays 4. I only have 1. I've spent very, very little resources getting these cards. I'm pretty sure I pulled this one. Black Mage's Rod, I got a couple. It cost only a common wild card, so it's good value when you're talking about a free-to-play account. But every time I cast a non-creature spell, it pings them for 1. So every one of these draw functions and these 1-cost cards that I'm throwing out pretty regularly is going to ping, and I like that. Vengeful Blood Witch, whenever a creature I control dies, it pings them for 1 and I gain 1 life, which is really helpful for this deck, especially if I already have a Mischievous Mystic going. So now every time I chump block with those fairies or the Infestation Sage, I'm gaining life and they're losing life, so it's another ping function. Very helpful. Moving on to the 3 costs, so we have Combat Tutorial for another draw function. 1 Erudite Wizard. I didn't want to spend too many wild cards, and I had this one, so even though it's just a common, I didn't want to spend too many of them before I had more of an idea what we were going to build today. But whenever you draw a second card each turn, put a 1/1 counter. So he can actually grow, that's good. It helps with blocking, and it certainly helps with attacking. Kiora, this is where the deck starts getting a little bit more interesting. So this card enters and does have a draw function, but then I start discarding. When she attacks, she gets this legendary octopus that's an 8/8. So I don't care if she dies when I attack. All I care about is that I get this octopus down, because he's a bigger creature for this deck especially. Then Avenger of the Fallen. He's not a great fit, but it's a rare and I got him for free, so I put him in here. He's got Death Touch, and he's a pretty big creature with Death Touch, at least for 3 cost. And if I do have any dead creatures, he's got Mobilize, so I get to throw more. Then I got 2 Phyrexian Arenas and Vampire Nighthawk. Phyrexian Arena is really, really important for this deck. It gives me a second card every turn after I've thrown this down. Very, very helpful. Now I'm drawing, I'm getting more of those 1 cost. I can cast more spells and ping with Black Mages. I get the fairy every turn. This is a great, great card. Vampire Nighthawk, Flying, Death Touch, Lifelink, 3 cost. Also an uncommon, so cheap. Very helpful for free to play. Great staller, not so great of an attacker. I would use it if they don't have any flying characters and I'm not worried about them hitting me, but most of the time using this guy for defense, unless I'm low on life. Dreadwing Scavenger works for me on two fronts. Number one, draws a card on entry and attack, which is good. Number two, has a discard function, which is helpful for Kiora as well as itself. If there's 7 or more cards in the graveyard, he gets 1/1 and Death Touch. So very, very helpful, especially because it doesn't say creature, neither does Kiora, it's just cards in the graveyard. So every time I'm throwing one of these tiny spells, he's added onto that stack. Very helpful for a blocker once he gets past that threshold, so he can have Death Touch, and also a flyer, very helpful in general. Quantum Riddler I have in here mostly as a draw function and a late game finisher. A 4/6 flyer is generally very strong later, and it has a warp function for 2, which we all love right now, especially if I have 1 or fewer cards in my hand, where I'm now drawing 2 cards for a 2 warp function, and he can come in again later. Ashiok is a great finisher for this particular deck. If I get to a point where I'm actually putting this card down, then I'm using the +1 over and over and over again so that I can always pull something useful. Basically as a draw 2, discard 1, except it goes into exile. Mirror Room, I don't remember where I got it, I'm pretty sure I just got lucky, but unlock this door, create a token that's a copy of the target creature you control. Really, I'm just trying to have as many mischievous mystics as possible on the board, unless I need somebody else with Death Touch or something like that. But it gives a lot of flexibility there, and then if I ever get to Fractured Realm, I would expect to at least have a few of my other main cards in the deck already working, and having a second trigger for them would be very, very helpful. Although, again, we're talking about very, very late game. The game's probably dragging on. Mischievous Mystic triggering again, Black Mage's Rod triggering again, Vengeful Blood Witch triggering again, and even Phyrexian Arena will trigger again for this. So pretty helpful all around. Now for lands, in the deck that I built here, I have 21. That's pretty aggressive, but the idea that I had was at least if I had some opening lands in my hand, then I can start using draw functions and I'll get more lands. I'll be okay. It's probably not perfect, that's okay. There is a lot of math that goes into having a 60 card deck and why that's optimal. A big portion of that is because you don't want to either get flooded or not have enough lands. The other main reason that you want to have a 60 card deck is because you usually build a deck around a few cards and you want to be able to draw your strongest cards. If you have 4 copies of something, it's easier to draw one of the 4 in a 60 card deck than it is in a deck that's 80 cards. So those are the main reasons. I'll go into detail and math in a future video. I've been playing a lot and I'm already in silver. It's far from perfect, but it's fun and it works. So the question now is, how do we make this more competitive? Well, I have a few favorite websites that I like to take a look at. Number 1 is MTG Goldfish, number 2 is mtgdex.net, and number 3 is MTG Top 8. There are others as well, but these are my favorites because they're going to show standard events that happened recently where people used meta decks. Now recently, on August 10th, there was a standard showcase challenge where everybody was freaking out online because Vivi dominated the top 8. But DIMIR Midrange by Campo actually won the tournament. So what I've done is I've copied that deck into MTGA. Most of these websites have a function for just exporting the deck, and then you use the import button right here. I put it right here. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna just select the deck and then go right here. I'm just kidding. And now I gotta bring it back in. So give me a second. There we go. Okay, so imported deck. I'm gonna make a clone just because. So first of all, I'm not gonna be playing best of 3, so I wanna just take out the sideboard. So after deleting the sideboard, I'm still 11 rare wild cards short. So what I'll do is I'll craft everything that's not a rare wild card, then I'll add them back in to the deck and figure out what I'm gonna leave out, what I'm gonna keep in, what I have in my other deck that might kind of replace what I'm taking out in rare wild cards here. They're not going to be nearly as good, but if they have kind of the same function, it might still work. Hopefully, especially early, it'll still work in, silver, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Okay, so I've crafted everything that's not a rare wild card. I did craft the mythics, which is just Kaido, and I actually still have 2 mythics left, so that's cool. So the first thing I wanna look at is, this is a lot of rare wild cards that are lands. What lands can I use to replace what I have here? Okay, so Gloomlake Verge, the function is dual land, but it doesn't enter untapped. I don't think I'm going to be able to recreate that without spending the wild cards. Let's see what else we have. This enters tapped. This becomes a 4/4 blue and black shark creature with death touch, and it's still a land. It makes people mill. Watery Grave, pay 2 life if you don't, it enters tapped, and then Starting Town enters tapped unless it's your first, second, or third turn. So at the moment, I'm not quite sure how to prioritize this. I kind of want to figure out what the best interactions are of the deck before I start crafting these rare wild cards, because I only have so many. Let's start with Kaito. He's a 3/4 ninja with creature and hexproof. You get an emblem every time you add a counter to him. Ninjas you control get +1/1. Surveil 2. Draw a card for each opponent who lost life this turn, and tap target creature and put 2 stun counters on it. This is a really, really good card. There's not any of those that we're not going to use or anything like that. The Enduring Curiosity is definitely an engine. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So it's really just a much better version of my Shoreline Looter. And not only that, when it dies, it's now an enchantment, so it's really hard to remove this function from the board. That does make it really strong. But at the same time, I have to consider that I have a card already that's not a rare that has a very similar function. Now, I really think this is a great engine, and I'll probably have to build off of this one, even though I have something similar. But I do have something similar, so it's an option. Tishana's Tidebender. When this creature enters, counter up to 1 target activated or triggered ability. If an ability of an artifact, creature, or planeswalker is countered this way, that permanent loses all abilities for as long as this creature remains on the battlefield with Flash. That's really strong. That's not only is it a 3/2 with Flash, but this has a lot of interaction implications in the deck. This is a great counter. Just give it the old nope. And that's the idea here. Shoot the Sheriff. I should have had this already, but I hadn't pulled it, so I didn't worry about it. But it's destroy target non-outlaw creature. That's going to be most creatures, and it's a 2 cost, so very good. Deep Cavern Bat, flying, lifelink, and exile for 2 cost. This is a staple in most black decks nowadays. Bitter Triumph really showcases what black can do in a deck like this. It's a 2 cost destroy, but you gotta discard or pay 3 life, one of the two. Floodpit's Drowner is trying to stall, and late it's trying to get blockers out of the way. Tragic Trajectory early is the same as Stab, but late is much stronger if you're sacrificing creatures. That's a fun one. Cecil Dark Knight in decks similar to this is very important because it's the only one with Death Touch. This one, there's only 1 copy. But a 1 cost 2/3 with Death Touch by itself is really good. Then after he transforms, he's a game ender. Other attacking creatures gain indestructible until end of turn. That's really good. Spyglass Siren, flying, so hard to block, and utility creates the map tokens. That's really good, especially for the cost. Spell Pierce, counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 2, so that's really good early. And Phantom Interference has the same cost, but it also has an option of creating the 2/2 white spirit creature token with flying. So what am I gonna take out initially? I do have some dual lands that do, a similar function, but they're not going to be as good. This one is going to be the closest, so I'll go ahead and add that one in, and I will take out Watery Grave just because I'm scared of it. I think I'll take out these 3, or maybe just 2 Sunset Saboteurs and try to find something that can fit in that slot. I'm thinking the Vampire Nighthawk just because it has flying, Death Touch, and lifelink, so it's pretty broad in use. It's the same cost. It's not the same cost. Just because it's pretty broad in use, and I don't have the wild cards. And I am gonna keep Cecil. I'm definitely keeping the Restless Reef. What am I at? 8? Okay, I still have to remove 8. Okay, let's remove the Watery Graves, and then add in the Dismal Blackwater. 5 left. Let's get rid of these. Can you shut up? Oh my god. Okay, and then let's get rid of the Gloomlake Verges and 1 Starting Town and add in 5. Which design do I like better? I like the Gilded Gate better. I'll add that. Okay, that should be all of them. Let's go ahead and craft finished deck. So we've used all the cards. Now, we have our deck that we're gonna use for high-end climbing. I am of the belief that everyone should have a pet deck. At least 1 pet deck just for fun. I'm gonna keep climbing with this one. All right, looking good. That'll be all for today. If you liked the video, if you learned something, please blow a wall. We'll continue to do some play testing. The next time we have a video on the free-to-play account, we'll be doing a check-in. We'll talk about how I liked the cards, what I've added, what I still want to take away. We'll do some pack openings, that kind of thing. So stay tuned.